Hi students, welcome back to this channel English Literature with Idham. After a long break, I'm back with another amazing and interesting topic, and that is about the different social and political revolutions in society, especially in British society, which have a significant effect and influence on the development of English literature. Historically, if we see that different political, social, cultural events have significantly transformed the nature and style of the writing. And few of the famous revolutions are more important because they are celebrated in English literature and they are seen as the major force behind any particular literary age. So, when we see the literature, we don't see it, read it isolated. We read it in connection with the society, the culture, and the environment of that time. And we also see that how the different literary stakeholders have responded to any particular revolution or event and how they have presented it and critiqued it into their writing. So, without wasting our time, let us begin. And one more thing that because there are various revolutions which have been happened in the history, Anglo-Norman Revolution, we have Civil War Revolution from 1642 to 1651. We have the Glorious Revolution started and ended in 1688. We also have the Social Contract Revolution associated with Jean-Jacques Rousseau, John Locke, and others. But I am skipping all of them and directly jumping into the most famous modern revolutions, which we see as the determinant forces behind the modern literary ages. So I would start with the French Revolution first. Now, but we see the revolutions as the social and political events are shows a very narrow kind of perspective because revolutions are not limited up to the society and the culture. They are spreaded and scattered throughout the world and they have a very global level influence. And these revolutions, though they are political and related to the development of governments, but they are equally important in the transformations of the human consciousness. And English literature has portrayed all these revolutions in the literature, showing it as a mirror of upheaval, also a critique of power, and also a visionary reconstruction of society. And each revolution which we would go through creates what we may call a crisis of meaning that forces writers to rethink about the human nature, about the human authority, agency, power, also about human liberty, freedom, and also about the truth and the realities. And in this sequence, we have the French Revolution, which was happened in 1789 to 1799. Though before this, we see there is the Industrial Revolution, which has the significant impact on the society, on the literature, and on the human consciousness. But we have this significant the French Revolution started in 1789 and ended in 1799. This revolution dismantles the centuries-old monarchy and introduced the radical ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity. However, its descent into violence, that's called the Reign of Terror, produced the hope followed by disillusionment. During the French Revolution, we had the disillusionment, but it is later turned into hope. And this pattern is deeply reflected in literature. And during this time, we have a literary age, which is the Romanticism, started by William Wordsworth and Astrid Coleridge, with the publication of Lyrical Ballad in 1798. And in this Romantic age, we see that this Romantic age is not about the romance, romantic story, or the love stories. It's about liberty, equality, and the fraternity. It is a celebration of the revolutionary ideals, and those revolutionary ideas are very experimental, thinking outside the boxes, creativity, and the innovation. And they are it is a reaction of its failure. So again, the Romanticism is about the reaction of the failure of liberty, equality, and fraternity of the French Revolution. This, the illusion of French Revolution is well portrayed by William Wordsworth in Resolution and Independence, where he says that bliss was it that dawned to be alive, but to be young was very heaven. It shows that how the French Revolution was quite difficult for Wordsworth to live, because it was too detrimental. It was against. It was a reaction uh, against the strict and the stringent rules, about the strictness, orthodoxy, and the radicalism. And Wordsworth says that now there is the liberty, equality, and the fraternity. And if there was no liberty, fraternity, and equality, it was very difficult to live. And he thinks that it is blissful, is blessed that he is alive on the dawn of liberty. Else he was in the heaven, he was completely died, living under the strict rules. And this line captures the euphoria of revolution, where history itself feels reborn. Later, Wordsworth says that I lost all feeling of conviction. And this shows the Wordsworth shift, how the revolution produces the psychological fragmentation. That is a key romantic concern. Next in this list, we have the William Blake, born in 1775 and died in 1827. We see that in his famous poem, The London, he says that the mind forged manacles I hear. Says that because the mind was imprisoned, it was stuck with the complicated rules, the complications. Now it is opening, it is being liberal, thinking outside the boxes. And I can see the minds uh, inner parts, my thoughts, they are opening little by little, layer by layer. And I am just sensing the liberty of the thoughts, liberty of the feelings, liberty of my life. So William Blake in this line shows that oppression is not only political, but internalized, a radical political insight. In the Song of Experience, he again says that, and because I am happy and dance and sing, they think they have done me no injury. He says that those strict rules of the society have um, done a great damage and injury to my psyche, to my identity, to my body, to my thoughts and feelings. And now I'm feeling some kind of a sense of liberty and dancing and singing. It doesn't mean that I have no injury. And this shows the critique of institutional hypocrisy, like the church, monarchy, and society. And poetry in this age becomes politically charged and symbolic. And we see that in the writing of William Wordsworth, H.T. Coleridge, P.B. Shelley, and various other romantic writers. We also see there is the emergence of poet as a prophet and rebel. Poets are the prophet of the society during the romantic age, and defender during defender or creator during the Victorian age, and questioner or challenger during the modern postmodern age. And we also see there is a shift towards the subjectivity and imagination, which we see in the writing of the William Wordsworth, who is highly subjective. And for that, John Keats says that he is egoistical sublime, because he keeps himself very centered. His experience is always the centered. In the writing of the My Heart Leaps Up or the Rainbow, he says that my heart leaps up when I see the rainbow. So it is his personal experience, a subjective experience of seeing the society. Next, we have the American Revolution, which was started in 1775 and ended in 1783. And in this revolution, we see that it has the direct roots in the Enlightenment philosophy, in the philosophy of John Locke, Jean-Jacques Rousseau. And it emphasizes the natural rights, democracy, anti-colonial resistance. And it has the direct connection with the Romantic Age, and also with the social contract theory. And it has been come into being due to the political consciousness, because this is a time when we see there is the independence in the American independence happened in the 1776. There is a political consciousness, and literature produced during this age becomes a weapon of ideology. We also see Thomas Paine's The Right of Man, where he says that man did not enter into society to become worse than he was before. That it was man's desire to be liberal, to be virtuous, to be righteous, rather than to be worse and evil in the society. And this work shows a direct challenge to the monarchy. And also the literature becomes argumentative and the persuasive during this American Revolution. There is a rise of political prose, and writers during this age act as the public intellectuals, and also literature engaged directly with governance and the rights. We also see the Industrial Revolution, which I mentioned earlier. It was started roughly around 1760 and ended in 1880. So there we see there is the development in the machines, in the factories, in the industries, and the machines replace the human labor. There is the urbanization that creates the slums. And there is also the capitalism that widened the class division. And during this time, we see that literature turns towards the objective social reality, as during the Romantic Age, there was a subjective reality, the personal experience, but now it is the literature shows the real social experience, like Charles Dickens has shown in The Hard Time or the Oliver Twist, or in the Vanity Fair, or in the Brave New World. And as in the Hard Times by Charles Dickens, we see that um there are the facts which are needed in life. Charles Dickens says that because during the Romantic Age, we see that there's an imagination and a fancy which is taken as important to lead a happier life. Now, Victorian Age believes that facts are needed to lead a better life. And the literature of Victorian Age is a direct satire on the industrial rationalism. There is a critique of dehumanization because we see that the humans are no more humans, they are considered non-humans. And this we see in the writing of earlier William Blake, Chimney Sweepers, where the children are cleaning the chimneys, ashes. And also during the Oliver Twist, we see that uh, there are the slums, the urbanization, the corrupt childhood, also this unhumanly attributions to the different humans, like the Fagin, also the Oliver Twist. And we see that Oliver Twist is behaving like a non-human because he has made so by the society, and where he says that please sir, I want some more, and here he wants more food because he's not getting his necessities of the life. So he is craving, or he is continually requesting for a better life, and there is a struggle for the survival. And in this work we see there is the child exploitation in the form of Oliver Twist, in the form of Nicholas Nickleby, also in the form of um, the criticism presented in the Hard Times and the Great Expectations. We also see this in the Thomas Hardy works, where in the Darkling Thrush, or a poem whose subtitle is On the Century's Deathbed. He says that the land's sharp features seem to be the century's corpse outlined. He says that a century is on the deathbed, the century is about the dying, and it has killed, this century has killed so many human values, human dignities and respects, and its corpse are outlined. And because this poem was written in 1899, when the whole century was about to change, and then it was even 31st of the 31st of December 1899, when it was written and published. We also see that in this poem we have the critique on the industrialization and the death of the nature, and what the nature, it is the nature of the human being, which we see in the writing of William Shakespeare. And we also see the death of nature, which we see in the writing of the Romantic Age. So there is a complete destruction of the nature, human, and the environment. and ecosystem, cultures. And it shows that there is pessimistic vision of the modernity, because all those things which were helpful and quite beneficial for the humanities are now lost, because nature is exploited, it is lost, human values are exploited, they are lost. And then we see in the writing of Virginia Woolf, where she says that in and around 1904, the human nature changed. So why the human nature changed? Because this is a society which has been changed completely. The human nature has been changed, the environment has been changed, the cultures have been changed, the human have become so self-centered, and which we see the class division earlier, that there are the great hierarchies between masters and slaves, between the poor and the rich, between the middles, higher classes and the lower classes, between the capitalists, producers and the consumers. And this is the time when we see the whole society has been changed. There is the rise of the problem novels. The writers are seen as the social reformers. They are, because they are critiquing the contemporary society into writing. And literature becomes the ethical and the political critique during this age. Next we have the Russian Revolution, which is about the Marxist ideology, who is the first socio-economist, and he promises of equality, but also there is the rights of authoritarianism. What is authoritarianism? It is kind of capitalism where authorities within the capitalists are corporates or industrialists. Like in India, we have the authority uh, within the Ambani and Adani. So all these industrialists uh, are a part of authoritarianism. Next, we have the ideology and dystopia during this Russian Revolution, and literature begins to question whether the revolution itself becomes oppressive, because the revolutions which show that there must be kind of reform of equality and opportunity, but at the end these revolutions end up abruptly and end up making or fostering more divisions, or end up making more class divisions in the society, which we see during the Russian Revolution, which also promotes the Marxian ideology. But there is the rise of authoritarianism, the capitalists, the corporates. And this we see in the writing of George Orwell, where in the Animal Farm, I think published in 1945 or 1949. So he says that all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. And this line shows that how there is the discrimination, there is the disparity uh, among the animals, and among the society, among the people. And this novel shows there is a corruption of ideals, there is the revolution that becomes self-destructive, and it is a critique of authoritarianism, or the egalitarian state. And in 1984 also there is the concept the big brother is watching you. So that shows that how the subjugation is practiced, how the dominance is practiced, how the people are colonized. There is a surveillance technology that big brother is always watching you. It means that you can't do anything freely, or you are not liberal. You are always watched, monitored, suppressed and oppressed by the higher authorities, by the industrialists, the authoritarians, and the corporates. We see that there is a fear of surveillance state, and this novel shows that language is a tool of control. And then we also see there is a birth of dystopian fiction, and literature critiques not just systems but ideologies themselves. After this, we have the World War First, in which we see the collapse of faith in progress. There is the mechanized warfare, mass death, and World War First was started in 1914 and in 1918, and its influence and effect is seen in the literature. There in the writing of T.S. Eliot, in the writing of even the Virginia Woolf, and in this where we see there is the reality that is completely fragmented and unstable. And in the writing of T.S. Eliot, who was born in 1888 and died in 1965, we see that how he shows there is the loss of spirituality, there is the hollowness inside, there is cultural loss, there is the human loss of human values, there is the identity, there is a fragmented identity, there are the broken psyches, there is a complete kind of psychological breakdowns. And he says that because earlier the April was considered a um, auspicious month, very beneficial for the society. And this we see in the writing of Geoffrey Chaucer, where he says that we have entered into a month of April that is quite brilliant in the actually in the Canterbury Tales. But T.S. Eliot says that April is the cruelest month because it has died so many people, it has broken the society, the people, it has fragmented the whole consciousness of the society. And the traditional symbol of suffering is completely inverted, and that it represents the spiritual decay, the spiritual hollowness, or the fragmentation. And also we see the effect of the World War First on the various writers, like both writers would say, because Robert Brooke, Sigfrid Sassoon, Wilfred Owen, and these writers are actually known for the writing of their experience in World War First, because they were part of the World War First. And remember the Sigurd Sassoon, who was a fugitive soldier who left the World War First, pretending that he's not good because he didn't want to be a part of that whole violent war. And in Wilfred Owens, from Dulls at Decorum Est, we see there is a bent double, like old beggars under sacks. And this shows that there is anti-heroic war imagery, and war destroys humanity. We also see Anthem on the Domed Youth, where there is a song of mourning on the youth, which has been died in the young age in the World War First. And in the writing of Virginia Woolf, also we see the character of Warren Smith in Mrs. Dalloway. For example, she says that fear no more the heat of the sun, because earlier the nature was so destructive, so powerful, so unhuman, in the form of different storms, different natural calamities. But now the human itself becomes a kind of that violence, part of violence, or the source of violence in society. We see that World War First was not started by the nature, but by human ideology itself. So it's Virginia Woolf says that fear no more the heat of the sun. Don't keep any kind of fear of the nature, but have the fear of the human ideology, because it's so poisonous. It is so poisonous and the violent ideology which doesn't value the humanity, destroys the humanity. There is a mass destruction of the humanity. There's a genocide, there's a mass killing, which we recently have seen in the contemporary society, in the Middle East, in the Palestine, in the Iran. How was the mass killing happened? And it happens due to the various ideologies the countries have at their own national levels. And such kind of writings uh, usually focus on the inner consciousness, the inner thoughts process of the humanity, and also the psychological realism that replaces the external action. We see that psychological realities in the Warren Smith in the Mrs. Dalloway, who is the shell shock soldier, and he jumps outside the window. So we see such kind of realities during the World War World War First, and in the World War Second also there is the Holocaust, atomic destruction, the moral collapse, that how the Hitler uh, violence and the mass destruction of the Jews happened. We also see the atomic destruction of Hiroshima and Nagasaki happened earlier. We also see that there are moral collapse because um, the wars happened due to the moral failures. And as Shakespeare said, that everything is fair in love and war. And we see that when there is any kind of war, there is first the moral collapse and doesn't see any child, a mother, a father, man and woman, old or young. It destroys each and everybody. It destroys the lives. It kills the humanity or the society as a whole. And when such kind of social issues and political issues happen, they also give a new kind of thematic concern in the literature, and that is the existentialism and the dark. And we see in the Waiting of Godot that how there is a concern of existentialism, and there is the absurdity in the literature, how the society, how the life is completely absurd, and the nihil, because the world wars have shook the spirit of the society. The people started um, disbelief on the values of life, on the humanity. And also in the William Golding's works like the Lord of the Flies, we see that how the he says that the thing is that the fear cannot hurt you any more than a dream. That there's the fear of killing, um, there's the fear of killing the society, killing the life. There is a mass destruction, and that fear can take your life uh, than having a bad dream. And this novel actually shows that the fear becomes the real violence. Humans are inherently savage, and literature becomes the pessimistic. That it also focuses on evil, survival, and the morality. And our Indian country and Indian nation is not left behind in such, having observed such a kind of social and political events and revolutions. And the most important is the Indian independence movement, which deeply reflects on the colonial oppression, the partition trauma, and it has given a literary shift, that is the post-colonialism. We see this concern in the writing of Salman Rushdie's The Midnight Children. And here in this work, Salman Rushdie says that to understand me, you will have to swallow a whole world. And he says that because such imperialistic vision is not new. It has been happened in historically with in every country, and Britishers have almost captured the whole part of the world. They have destroyed the whole societies. They have destroyed the culture, the language, the identity, and this the same has been happened with India also. And there he shows that the identity is complex and the fragmented, the nations and the self are intertwined because there is a collective identity of us. So he becomes a microcosm of the whole Indian society. He says that this Midnight Children, the society which I presented in the Midnight Children, is actually the society as a whole. It is representation of the whole nation, and both the self and nation are intertwined. We also see this colonial perspective in the Mulk Raj Anand, The Untouchable, published in 1935. There we see that uh, Baka has been humiliated so often, and this now because he is given uh, the work of cleaning the toilets, and that cleaning the toilets is completely caste based. And this particular novel focuses on the caste oppression, and it also shows that literature is a voice of the marginalized, because this novel highlights the realities and the causes of the caste oppressed, underprivileged, the subalterns, the subjugated, the Dalits, and untouchables. And it also shows how the English literature expanded globally. There is also focus on identity, the Dalit identity, hybridity, the resistance. So after discussing all these thematic concerns, after happening such political and social revolutions in the literature, we see that across the revolutions, literature undergoes a dialectical movement, and the hope is where the revolution begins, because whenever the revolution begins, there is always a kind of hope of the transformation, the development, or the growth, and those revolutions end up in disillusionment, and where the reality sets in. And also there is the reflection in the literature, that how the literature responds on any particular uh, revolution. And then we have the Romantic Age, where we see the writers are the prophet of the society. In the Victorian Age, we see that writers are the reformers of the society, like the Charles Dickens, like Matthew Arnold, Robert Browning. They are the reformers of the society. And in the Romantic Age, William Wordsworth, P.B. Shelley, uh, S.T. Coleridge, John Keats, Sude, Lord Byron, they all are the prophet of the society. In modern age, we have uh, T.S. Eliot, we have the Virginia Woolf, we have also the Salman Rushdie, we have W.B. Yeats, W.H. Auden. So all they are the we have um the writer of the Darkling Thrush, and all these writers are the uh, experimental in their writing approach. And in the postmodern or post-colonial literature, we have the writers who are appearing as a questionnaire, or uh, the challenger of the social ideology or the social discourse. So let us wrap up it with some final punches, that literature is not just the influenced by revolution. It interprets, critiques, and sometimes corrects it. As George Orwell implicitly suggests, that political language is designed to make lies sound truthful. Political language is designed to make lies sound truthful. And also the literature and also the literature remains humanity's most powerful tool to resist, question, and reimagine reality. So I'm ending my this conversation here, hoping to catch you again with another amazing topic. Till then, take care.